Hello, welcome to Closing Chapters, Everyday Real Estate Tales. I'm your host, Brittney Frye. I'm a realtor, I'm a military wife, and I'm a mom. Join me and come transaction by transaction throughout my real estate career starting back in 2016 to hear about the highs, the lows, and the unexpected turns along the way through all of my customers. It's going to be a crazy ride, you guys. I am so excited to share the past, the current, and then what's coming in the future. Hang tight for the ride. Join me about being a realtor, a military spouse, and a mom. Can't wait to see you there. Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. So this is going to be a conversation really to hash out with my real estate friends. You guys, we all have a common goal to work together and to get to that closing table for both sides of the transaction to be able to sign and get their part done, whether it is buying or selling, right? We have that common goal and we have to work together to get there. And this all starts with showing properties. So this weekend, I was out showing properties in South Carolina, and each property I went to had a specific hurdle, shall we say, that I had to get over. And it was all things that really could have been mediated very easily if a little bit of time and effort had been put into place. So I just want to run through this and say, hey, this is a great reminder to myself and to others that we can up our game a little bit, right? We got so complacent and used to the hustle and bustle of like a couple years ago where nothing hardly ever got on market. It was selling before you ever got a sign in the yard. And now properties are actually being shown and they actually are staying on the market for 30, 50, 60 days, right? So there's a few things we've got to do and change about our business to make sure that we are adjusting to this new market and our new normal. So the first property that I went to, it was listed as occupied, like tenant occupied, 24 hours notice to show it, no big deal. So I scheduled earlier in the week for the showing and it got approved pretty instantly. So we get to the property, I open the storm door and there are cobwebs and spider webs and spiders. I don't like those at all. And when your clients are standing behind you and you have to be the first line of defense, it kind of stinks. It's not fun to be the person that clears the cobwebs. So either way, we get into the property and surprise, it's empty. There's nothing in it. Okay. This is kind of a happy surprise, right? It's a whole lot easier to see the property, see the walls, see the floors, everything about it when it is empty. However, it would have been nice to know that because when you're anticipating one thing and you get another, it makes you second guess things, right? Am I in the right property? Did I read that correctly? Did I make my clients wait to see this property when we could have seen it any time? No. All of the instructions were very clear on the listing. So we go in and we see the property and it's all fine and dandy, okay? So my two notations for this first property is one, somebody should be going by and maintaining it if it is vacant, right? Just make sure that's ease of access, everything's good. There's not a bunch of leaves in the front door. There's not a bunch of cobwebs and spiders hanging out, okay? Just make sure everything's good. Plus, when you leave a property vacant and people start to notice it's vacant, people can tinker with things and we need to not let that happen. So having a presence at the property is a good thing. And then number two is just simply updating the listing. Takes, maybe 2 minutes to go in and update the listing and say, hey, property is no longer tenant occupied, it is vacant, schedule an appointment and show. Just so that we understand what we're walking into. We should expect an empty house. And this is really important because you want to know one way or the other, right? If that house was supposed to be vacant and I saw somebody's belongings in there, you best believe I'm turning around, walking out that door, calling the listing agent and calling the police, right? So we need to have clear expectations every step of the way because I have a duty to help protect that property too. If I'm showing it and I see something is wrong or not in the norm or not the way that it was listed or said that it should be, then I need to speak up and do something about it too, right? I may not be able to take action, but I can pick up the phone and call that listing agent. I can pick up the phone and call the police and say, hey, I have a concern here, right? So legitimately, I'm going to sidebar for a second. I had a listing in downtown Sumter and I'm out putting the sign up and I see this person walk up to the house across the street from me and sit on the porch. Well, I'd been by this property several times, and I knew what vehicle belonged at that house, and I'd seen the people coming in and out of the house before. This was not that person. There was no vehicle there. It just didn't match. And they had made a couple of comments to me when they were walking by. It just seemed like kind of lucid, not great. So I called the police, and sure enough, somebody that was not in their right mind, I think that they were having a substance abuse issue, and they had just wandered up onto this person's porch and was hanging out there, and they did not belong. So it's, it had nothing to do with me, seriously. Like, it wasn't my property. It wasn't even a property I was involved with. But when you have situational awareness, you got to lean into that. And I think it can take us far. So that was property number 1 in a nutshell. Now let's head on to property number 2. It's a cute little brick rancher, adorable. Has 2 front doors, and the instructions say go through the right front door, and there's an alarm. So I already know in my head I've got to get to this alarm and turn it off. And the instructions were like, go in, go this way, go that way. It's between a bedroom and a bathroom. It was like you knew you were walking into a maze, and it wasn't going to be like right there at the door. So I was a little bit like wired thinking about this alarm, and I get to the front door and there's no lockbox on the door. Like, okay, where's the lockbox? Well, there's a metal pole to the right side of the house, and it was on that pole. So I found it, but goodness, it would have been nice if the showing instructions simply said where the lockbox was actually located. So that's a simple fix. Like, we can put instructions in the MLS that says, hey, agent, you will find the lockbox located here, right? Not a big deal. Or this agent had texted back and forth with me about specific things, and she could have told me then or sent me a quick picture. If I put a lockbox in an inconspicuous place, I will take a picture of it, and that way I can send it over, like if I'm texting with an agent, and say, hey, here's a lockbox, like this is what you should be looking for. Or sometimes we have to put multiple lockboxes on the properties because we have agents from different areas or contractors coming in that may not have access to our digital lockbox. So you kind of have to have a plan in place and be able to follow up with that appropriately. Okay. So the other part that was interesting about this is there's a storm door and then the wooden door, and the storm door, the glass door, was also locked. So I am trying to unlock the storm door, and it does not unlock easily, nor does it lock easily. Surprise, surprise. So when you have a listing and it's hard to get in or out, it's really frustrating for the agent, and it also makes us look really dumb, shall I say? At least that's how I feel. I feel like I'm sweating and my clients can tell, right? And I even told my clients when we were going into this property, I was like, this is why agents don't get paid to open doors. This is the smallest part of our job. Because if so, oh my goodness, we suck at it. Like, we come through problems like this all the time. Alarms going off, doors won't open, we can't find a lockbox, key isn't in the lockbox, and we're just stumped. And we have to try to figure it out. This is not where we shine, folks. This is not our bread and butter. So we get into property number 2. The alarm is very loud. I find the alarm, cut it off. So we see the house, and then we're getting ready to leave. Okay. So I get told, hit this button on the alarm and walk out and you should be fine. Well, I go to hit the button on the alarm and it starts hollering something else at me. And I'm like, I don't know if I've set this right or not. Thorough instructions, please and thank you. If there's something specific that has to be done in order for the alarm to be set, you've got to let people know, right? It's not just like hit a button and go, because sometimes there's extra steps along the way. And if we don't have all of that information, then we don't know what we are or aren't supposed to do. So hopefully I did that right. One will never know. So we boogied on over to property number 3. And this property, the instructions were the lockbox is on the back door. And it's a coded lockbox, meaning it's one of the ones that like you can twist and turn all the different numbers or letters and line it up into a code. Okay, so we go around to the back door. The first back door we come to, surprise, surprise, has no lockbox on it. So we keep walking around and there's a second back door. And it's underneath of like an overhang. All right, so simple solution. I could have put a notation in the listing, go around to second back door underneath of the overhang, or furthest back door. right? From the left side of the property, walk all the way to the back. You're going to pass one door and get to the next one. So many things we could have said to be set up for success. Okay, so we find the lockbox. Woohoo! I put in the code. It does not work. And I say, all right, I have transposed numbers before. Let me make sure that I've got the numbers right. I pull up my text message. Yep, I got it right. Code's not working. So I even flipped the lockbox over to make sure that the key is free in there, because sometimes we will put big keychains on the key and it'll kind of just get jammed in the lockbox. Doing everything I could to make sure that I was not in error here. So finally I call the agent, no answer. So I text her and I say, hey, lockbox isn't working. And thankfully her husband is also a licensed agent. He gives me a call because she was in an appointment and says, hey, my wife said, give you a call. What's up? And I said, I'm trying to show this house and the lockbox isn't working. And he said, oh, try this code. And the code he gave me was completely different, and voila, it worked. So friends, we have to have the right information. Simple, simple, simple fix. All right. I wasn't given the right location of the lockbox and I wasn't given the right code. Not my fault, but who's the one that looks silly? Yours truly. Okay. So we got in and out of that property just fine after that. But in the meantime, we had some chatty neighbors that were kind of being loud and hollering over to us, and that was a little uncomfortable. And I didn't really know if they were talking to us or if they were, just yelling and screaming with the kids. Like, it was really hard to tell. So I would have loved for us to expedite getting into this property. So either way, no harm, no foul. We made it through. And now we get to the last property of the day. And it is a doozy, okay? So we wanted to see this property earlier on, and we were told, hey, it's got a tenant in there. They have kids that's hard to remove. There's a dog that's hard to remove. Not easy access. They're going to be moving out in a week or so. Could you please just hang tight? Sure. So now is our time. We've been told, hey, they've moved out. Go ahead, see the property. And we pull up, and they've moved out and just left everything in the yard of the property, including kitchen knives and razor blades and shoes and all kinds of other things. So that was a fun surprise. Once again, as a listing agent or a realtor in general, right, we should really try to help hold a standard. And we know at the end of the day that you can't control other people. And this is what we talked about when we were at the property. I was like, I tell my 4-year-old all the time, who can you control? And she has to say me, because she likes to try to correct other people, just like every other 4-year-old in the world. And this was one of those moments where I was like, gosh, if I were the listing agent, I would not allow this property to be in this, condition. But it's not his fault. I mean, he didn't do it. It's just, would you allow that to happen? Would you continue to list the property if it was in this condition? So either way, we get up onto the porch, we get to the lockbox, and the key in the lockbox does not work to the door that the lockbox is on. I'm trying a couple different times. I'm like, this does not work. It doesn't fit. So there's another door on the side. So we go around to the side door, and of course the key works. Yay. Now, could we not have had specific instructions once again? Hey, key is on the front door. Key goes to the side door, right? Help me out a little bit, please. So we get into the property, and my client is like swatting at her ankle a little bit, and she thought she maybe just got a bug or something like that, right? We all have the heebie-jeebies from the first property going through the spider webs. Well, we're in there for maybe 2 minutes. The property is really in distress. It's disgustingly dirty. A lot of repairs need to be made. And we all realize that we have fleas all over us. So we beeline for the door and get outside. We're all trying to get the fleas off of us. And this was really, really disheartening because my client is expecting. And I feel horrible about this. I do not want to take my client that is with child inside of a property that could be harmful to her, right? So there's nothing I could do. I mean, it was their choice to be in the property, right? But if we would have known, hey, there's a flea problem in the property, I could have relayed that and we would have been prepared and made a decision from there, right? Or as the agent, if you knew, could you go by and put a couple flea bombs in the property? Try to see if you could help the situation a little bit. And part of me thought, okay, maybe the people moved out, the agent hasn't been in the property, he doesn't know about it, da-da-da-da. Well, it was so bad, and he had made a comment to me that if he's shown the house before, either he has to be there or the tenant had to be there. So I know he's been in the property, and he also didn't have a key to the property while the tenant was there. So I know that he's been there and put a lockbox on the property, so he probably was in the property then. So it's really disheartening that we just did not get the correct information to make an educated decision. I know you can't control everybody. I know you can't make an owner come in and clean up the property. I know you can't make them spray it, but you could certainly say, hey, can I go to Walmart and throw a couple bug bombs in the property? Like, this isn't safe for me to show it this way, to market it while it's like this. Or could we pay somebody to come clean up the yard and get all of the unsafe items out of the yard and deduct it from closing, because it's not going to do us well if somebody gets hurt on the property while they're out showing it, right? So many different things. And my clients just kept saying, gosh, there's so much square footage here. This could be so great. They should really take it off the property and fix it up the right way and put it back on. And I was like, I agree with you. But, once again, who can we control, right? So those were the 4 properties that I got to show this weekend, and all of the fun hurdles and challenges we went through. Now, none of these were significant, and all of them could have been fixed extremely easily with proper communication, proper instructions, updating the MLS, the listing, right? So we have to remember that when we have listings, we can't just set it and forget it, right? We have a duty to maintain the property to help make sure everything's in good shape and that it's showing well and it's safe for other people, or to simply disclose the current condition of the property, whether it's vacant or occupied, whether there is a bug problem of any kind, and take the correct precautions, right? Everybody can make their own decisions if they have the information, right? So agent friends, please take my advice and just listen to these situations and think, if I've got a listing, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen? Because on the buying side, like when you're showing these properties, it's frustrating, right? And I'm a professional and I want to look like a professional, and you can help me do that by having the proper instructions and everything coordinated the way that it should be. So let's work together and make sure that we are all working together like a well-oiled machine. It does not matter what brokerage we're with, how long we have been in the business. We are all capable of doing a good job for our clients and with working with one another and being cooperating brokers, okay? So I hope that this is helpful. Sometimes we simply forget, or when we're in the thick of it, we just don't think. So these are my to-dos for the future when I have listings, to make sure that I am setting them all up correctly and setting you up for success as well, my friends. Have a great day.